I bought my first property from Pinal Callahan, and that's where I met him. We became friends. I guess we just got along. And I do remember at one point I asked him, how much was the commission on the property that I bought off you? And he told me $50,000. And I just remember thinking, $50,000? That's a whole year's salary for a lot of people. I had people working for me at the time that made $1,000 in hand a week, and I got 48 weeks a year of work out of them for that money. And Pinal, I'd spent 3 hours worth on site, and I'd bought a bare block of land off him, so there wasn't much to talk about, other than we kind of ended up probably spending 2 hours talking about cars. So $50,000 to me was a lot of money, and I realized that a lot of people probably just wrap that up into their mortgage and don't really notice it. And it just seems crazy to me that's you work 2-3 years of your life just to pay for the commission portion of a 3-hour job. Now, I do realize now there's a lot more to it than 3 hours, but there's not 1,000 hours to it. There's, so we kind of remained friends and stayed in touch. And I remember he came to me with an idea because he had started his own real estate company throughout that, and he'd taken off his agent's hat and put on his business owner's hat, and he was looking around to see what other things could threaten him. And he saw a company overseas called Purple Bricks, and he liked the idea of the way that they had done it. To be fair, once he brought that idea to us, we had to sit down and dissect it, and they actually do real estate a lot different in the UK than they do here. So we had to really change it. But the biggest thing that we looked at was how could we reduce the cost of commissions and be a fairer price for Kiwis, just to try to save Kiwis that extra couple of dollars each week, that maybe that little bit of mortgage payment, that might be the money that you can take your kids to the movies with, or I don't know, take the boat out fishing or whatever, right? Just have that extra little bit of pocket money each week. How could you save that out of people's mortgages? And in order to achieve that, we had to look at what does an agent do, and dollar per hour they still had to make the same amount of money that they're making now, because you can't bring the price down without, well, in theory, if you don't change the way you're doing it, without compromising on service. So you wanted to make sure the service was amazing, but the price was a lot fairer. And in order to do that, we looked at it, and I think me being the vendor and looking at it always from the vendor's point of view, I believe that every dollar that we spend is someone's mortgage as far as I'm concerned. And that's a hardworking Kiwi's mortgage, because you don't get a mortgage if you're not a hardworking Kiwi, right? So every dollar that we spend in the company is someone's mortgage as far as I'm concerned. And an agent at the time had to do everything. And what I mean by that, I mean, if you look at Henry Ford, one person doesn't build the car. He made the production line, so one person makes the bolt, the tire, the wheel, and they become a master in that, and it makes it efficient. And so we sort of sat down, and I remember just Pinal being the real estate agent, and he was a really good real estate agent. I think in his best year, he sold 157 houses by himself in traditional model, not in our model that we have now, in a traditional model. But me, the vendor, him, the agent, and me, the business owner, him, the agent, or agency, understanding real estate. And the two of us, I would ask, like, why? Why is it done like that? Why is it done like that? And we both just questioned every step of the real estate process. And throughout that, we then worked out, well, let's make it much more efficient. Why do we have somebody that's doing the copywriting when they're not a copywriter? Why does the agent do this? Why does it have to do this so much? Admin here, admin. And there's so many things, I think, in real estate that have just been done for years and years, and it hasn't changed. And yeah, we tried to look at how could you save the agent as much time as possible so that he could stay doing what he's really good at, which is just selling the house. And we then decided that you needed to use tech to do that. And so we sort of writing down on scraps of paper until all hours of the morning, multiple nights in a row. We kind of came up with a plan and went to multiple different companies across Auckland to find out who could build us an app. And at that point, we decided that it was actually cheaper us just to bring somebody on full time. And that's when we started to look for a lead software developer or lead architect. And we found Fred. We brought on a great bunch of people who all were luckily just as passionate as we were about it. And each person passionate in their area, from the photographer to the videographer to everybody together working to try to make their areas the best they could make them. And at the same time also looking to be as efficient and as cost effective. And that's, I think, the biggest thing about us. We always look to be, how efficient can we be? And is that dollar that we're spending of the vendor's mortgage or of a Kiwi's mortgage, is it spent well? And I think that's our biggest core thing. We went through a phase of building out the tech and the platform, and we built the foundations for like a big house. And those foundations from our original massive tech team that we were never expecting to grow to, we'd built this platform that we could continue to build on, but it had sucked all of my money and everything was gone by then. There was no more money left to put into it. We had to pivot and go, hey, let's actually spend the money on actually now building that house on top of it, as in adding agents to it so that they could actually use this software. I remember walking around the office at one point and we had 16 software developers and we only had 18 agents. And it was about, well, how do we now we've got this software that can run for 1,000 people. Well, we've got 18 people using it. How do you now add it up, and instead of focusing on continuing to build something out that's good, actually have people use it so that you can hear what they want and then build for what they want rather than what I think that they might want. So as we go now, we are trying to adapt and see what the agents actually need themselves. And I kind of believe to lead from the top, you actually have to listen to the bottom. And so we need to listen to all the agents and see what they actually need, identify that, and then continue to evolve and grow going forward. And that's the phase I think that we're in now. We're at the point where the big house is already built. We've got lots of agents now. Now it's about how can we support those agents to grow their own personal businesses and be successful in their own lives. And if the value for them is going from doing 10 sales to doing 20 or 20 to 30 or whatever their number is, how can we also help them achieve that? But also too, if their number is that they just want to do 20 a year and they're happy to do it, that because they want to have more time with their family, that's also super important. I believe that takes away their stress. And the big thing for me is if we can take away a stress that an agent has, and you go into an environment when you're working with a buyer and a vendor where it's like the most stressful time when you're buying or selling a property, it's your biggest asset normally. And it's stressful. Well, you don't want to send a stressed agent into a stressful environment and create more stress. You want to try to support the agent as well as possible so that they're not stressed in their own lives and they can actually help pull stress away from that vendor in order to give a good service. So it's for us to give a good platform and good service to those agents so that they can give great service to Kiwis. The goal today is the same as it's always been: to enable agents to provide the best service possible at a fair price for Kiwis and reduce their stress in order to help them reduce vendor stress, which gives a great service at a fair price.